Morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. It's a very special August 1st edition of our live show, and we are excited to have a very special guest on today. A guy who has done some really great things in a very kind of, I guess you would say, short period of time, but doing a tremendous job. And today marks his, I guess you could say, I Day, his Independence Day, because officially today
Yeah.
is his first day out of the workforce and into the note force. So good morning, Dan Deppen.
Hey, good morning. How's it going?
Doing wonderful, man. So for those that don't know who you are, why don't you take a second here out to Note Nation and share a little bit of who you are and kind of your background.
Yeah, so my name is Dan Deppen. So I was an engineer in the aerospace industry originally, then did my MBA, and I've been a product manager in the software industry for the last several years, and then got into notes about year and a half ago, and I've just kind of really gone deep down the note rabbit hole since then.
So yeah, year and a half, you got started kind of learn online. How'd you get your toes in the water? Do you start buying a bunch of notes yourself? Do you joint venture with a few people? What kind of happened with that?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, I kind of started off, reading about it online. Found Note Camp, was the first real note training that I did. Did about maybe 6 months or so of studying and trying to get things figured out. And then the first thing I did was I joint ventured with a more experienced note investor, to kind of try to learn from him and follow along. But then, kind of the way that played out, that deal worked okay. There wasn't necessarily a lot of learning involved. And right about the same time I did that, I bought my first note on my own. And really, that's for me when things really got going, because it was great to kind of go through all the theory and, put together this model and kind of figure out your game plan. But then when things actually start happening, that's when you really learn, when you start to encounter different situations, and you learn all the details of the mechanics of how the sales work. So learning by doing really accelerated things for me.
Mm-hmm. Now you also bought some performing notes to put in your IRA to kind of start off with too. So you've melded the performing and the non-performing side together, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I started with the performing notes because it kind of took away, a little bit of some of the degrees of freedom that you have on the non-performing side, but it was really good just for learning how the transactions work and what all the different pieces of paperwork are and how they go together. And for me, also wrapping my head around some of the timelines. A lot of my investments have been in stocks and options. I had been very heavy into that since I was 19, and I was very used to, you want to buy a stock or trade an option, you click a button and, the deal's on. Whereas in real estate, obviously things move a lot slower than that. It takes more time to get things funded, get the paperwork done, get everything recorded. And so it just helped with, for me, getting my mind around understanding how that whole process works.
But it was performing for you in your IRA, which is great. So you were able to kind of use the fundamentals, learn it, get to understand, okay, time frames for servicing transfers, paperwork, all that good stuff. And so how many notes have you bought since you bought your first one, or you partnered on your first one?
Yeah, so I've done 13 so far.
Okay. 13. But that's great. You've had a plan of action, though, to get where you wanted to be. When did you kind of start planning to go full time with what you're doing?
I really started thinking about it hard, probably back during the April Mastermind at Cape Coral. And my original thinking then was, well, I'll transition to full time in about a year. So I was kind of thinking like April 2019. I'll do that, and then I'll go back and watch the Masters like I did a couple years ago. That'll be like my celebration thing. And then as I got going, I was like, well, no, maybe I can do it the end of this year. And then it kind of just ended up working out where it really made sense for me to go ahead and do it now for a variety of reasons.
You want to share some of those reasons?
Yeah, of course. So, well, as I was scaling up, the notes business, I was, of course, working full time. And in my day job, that had actually been going really well over the course of this year. Really in January, things started picking up where I got kind of recognized by some of our exec team, and they started having me help more with business development and putting together partnerships. And I was starting to get invited to these executive strategy sessions, which was all great, but it made it more challenging to do notes at the same time. And then likewise, as I was starting to scale up notes, it started to become a little more of a challenge to keep up with everything. Like I've been able to stay on top of the notes that I have now, but as I looked out and said, okay, how am I, doing this with 13 notes now? What does this look like with 50? And something was going to really have to give. I was either going to have to, do a crappy job at my day job, which I didn't want to do, or I was going to have to slow roll the notes business, which I really didn't want to do. So I felt like I'd kind of reached a point where I had to pick one or the other. And it was really kind of an easy decision because I like my day job, but I didn't necessarily love it. I was definitely much more passionate about notes. And, for me, notes provides a lot more personal upside than my day job did. If I really kick butt in my day job, I might get a 5% raise instead of a 3% raise, but that's not quite the same upside that I'll be able to have by focusing on notes.
Now, the question I'm sure a lot of people out there. First of all, Katie Motons is so excited for you, Dan. Congrats.
Thank you, Katie.
Your wife came with you to the Mastermind. What did her mind kind of get a little bit more at ease after the Mastermind? She met a lot of people. Or was she a little hesitant, or what was her kind of mindset?
Yeah, prior to the Mastermind, definitely helped her a lot. Prior to the Mastermind, she wasn't, she didn't necessarily have any concerns about it, but she didn't really know anything about notes. She knew that I was into it. She was like, that's, great. You go do your thing. But at the Mastermind, it was really helpful for her to get to meet a bunch of people and talk to folks and really understand more of the, entrepreneurs' mindset. And also, listening through some of the deals where she could wrap her head around it and really understand it, because her takeaway from that was, oh yeah, I really get it, and all of this stuff makes sense. So, she was always on board, but, she was kind of more on board with, the understanding of how everything works and why I was doing, some of the things I was doing. So that was really great.
Right. So the big thing for those that are listening out there, watching on Facebook Live or listening on iTunes and Stitcher, feel free to email us your questions. Feel free to post your questions. Got a question from Cedric Wilson or a comment. He goes, yes, exactly. Doing a great job in my day job and getting more responsibility, taking time away to get going with notes. That's what happens. You do good at one thing, you can't chase two things, right?
No, you couldn't. And I've always prided myself on, being good at whatever things I decide to do. So yeah, I didn't want to be in a position where I was trying to do, two things at once and, not doing them as well as I should be.
Mm-hmm. Now, a question for you. You probably obviously sat down. What did your wife say when you approached the subject of, hey, honey, I'm going to leave my job in a couple weeks?
Well, it's funny. She knew I was thinking about it. She actually pushed me to do it. So, I had been thinking about it for a while. We had talked about it now and then. And, her reaction was, she's like, you should just go do it. It's obviously what you want to do. And then the other thing that really hit me was she goes, you need to be less conservative, which is funny coming from her because she's an aerospace engineer, like me. And I've always viewed myself as a lot less conservative than Jennifer. So I'm like, when she's telling me to be less conservative, that's kind of a clue. It's time to, to really get going. So you can't really ask for more support than that. So it was more her, it was almost more of a case where she was convincing me more than I was convincing her.
So. Well, that's awesome because it's always good to have your family in your corner being supportive of you and pushing you towards the goal that you want to get. So you're obviously, if I know you from the time we spent together, you've planned things out or got some numbers for you over the next 6 to 12 months. You mind sharing that with everybody out there, kind of what your goals are and how you plan on accomplishing those?
Yeah, so I've got 13 notes right now. My plan over the course of 2018, I want to do 17 more, which will get me to 30. And then, I haven't made the detailed plans for 19 yet, but we'll kind of see how things are looking at the end of the year. But what I ultimately want to do is get to a business that's really scalable, where I can be doing 80 plus notes in a year, which I believe I can do. So as I've set things up and everything I do, I've really been thinking about how everything will work at a bigger scale, instead of just the one-off. So I'm really kind of focused on, building a notes business that's going to be really, really scalable. So, and, getting to 17 this year shouldn't be a big deal. That's maybe, 4 or 5 a month from, September through December. And, I've had several months where I've been doing 3, even working part-time. So I think it's a fairly, a plan I should be able to hit, and, hopefully go well beyond that.
Now, are you using your own money? I mean, I know you use some of your IRA money for the performing notes. We talked about that a while back, but are you using other people's money to do this, or are you using all your own money?
Yeah, no, so I've used a little bit of my own money, but I've got a couple different funding partners already that have been funding notes. And, that for me was really the biggest surprise. When I looked at, doing notes full time, I had kind of assumed that getting funding partners would be the hardest part, but it was actually has been far easier than what I expected, because, I mean, the funding partners I have now, it's not like they're, previous close friends or family. These are other people who are interested in, in notes that wanted to do deals. And really, if you can go out and find good deals, there's plenty of money out there, looking for them. So that's been kind of the biggest surprise to me so far, and kind of set off the alarm bells that, oh, wait a minute, if I can get funding partners with really a relatively low level of effort, if I have more time to really dedicate, focus, and do a lot more marketing, I should be able to scale that up.
Right. Now, you were on a Monday Note a couple weeks ago, one of our Night in America Monday Note webinars, and we were going through a case study. I offered a case study to jump on. You jumped on it and shared it. What happened with that deal? Because it looked like it was a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, it was. So, so that was great to go through that. Like, I obviously thought it was a good deal beforehand, but then, I was pretty pumped after, you really liked it as well. So I sent that video to, some of the people who I had that were interested in investments, and someone grabbed it pretty quickly. And that was someone who had actually met at a local Denver Note meetup, like the week prior, and we had been talking a little bit. And I sent him the link to that. I said, here's one deal. I think this is pretty good. And here's a video, of an expert kind of going through it. And he got back to me within like a day or so and said, all right, let's do it. So that's been awesome.
Now, did you ever get any backup offers? Any other people that were excited, or?
Yeah, I had a couple others that were excited about it and came back, like the next day later, and I was like, well, sorry, that one's gone, unfortunately. So yeah, that one definitely went pretty quick.
But will they be interested in funding the next one with you?
Yeah, so one guy, funded the next one already, and so now I'm kind of at the point where I got to go out and find more. So
we got Eric Hyde out here. Good job, Dan. Go get it, buddy. Our resident Gardenia police officer who was actually handling a triple or quadruple homicide yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Eric was texting stuff back and forth on the plane. So your goal is to hit 17 more by the end of your second year. So you'd be at 30 your second year. What besides, I know, because now, has the marketing been a little bit more of a surprise for you coming from your background?
No, not really. I mean, I had, taken some digital marketing courses in business school back when, digital marketing was like a brand new thing at University of Colorado. In fact, I think I took the first ever digital marketing program or course as part of their MBA. And I had done some other stuff before. I used to be big into poker during the poker boom, and actually wrote a book on that. So I had done some marketing, previously, and built an email list, and, done some other things. Now, a lot of that was, 8-9 years ago. So things were, that's obviously evolved quite a bit since then. But I kind of came into notes understanding, at least the basics of digital marketing. So it wasn't a completely brand new thing to me. And then a lot of what I did as a product manager, more than half of that job was marketing. Now that's different because that's more high tech, marketing, but some of a lot of the concepts carry over.
So do you have a market? Obviously, you've got a plan you probably put in place. What's kind of your weekly marketing plan for those that are listening out there?
Yeah, so what I've been doing to date is I send out a weekly email on Sunday nights, and then on Tuesdays I resend that to everyone who didn't open it. And then I've got an asset manager list. Now, my asset manager emails have been a lot more irregular. I've intended to do it once a month, but that's one of those things. Is there's only so much time in the day doing a full-time day job and notes and family stuff and everything. That's one area that's kind of lagged a little bit. Now, that hasn't stopped me from being able to find deals, but now that I'm able to focus on this full time, that asset manager reach out and the phone calls is something that I'm really, really gonna be ratcheting up, because one of my focuses is I've got some good sources of, when I talked to Jay Tenenbaum a few months ago, he said you need to find what he called, quote, off the grid sources of notes. And I've got one that I would call kind of mostly off the grid so far, but that's going to be your big focus for me over the next 6 months is cultivating more of those. So I'll have more specific, email campaigns around that. So I'll do a lot of emailing there. And then the other thing that's great is I'll have time to be doing phone calls to the people who are opening the emails and looking at those. Because that working full time, that was really a challenge, was finding time for the phone calls. And I got pretty good at being able to, grab a conference room and kind of sneak away to do some things. But it'll be nice when I can just sort of time block and just dedicate, a couple of hours to be able to sit down and make phone calls a couple times a week.
That's a good thing. That's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's all basically, you talk about systems. That's the systems of doing stuff where it's once a week or once a month out there. Question here from Donovan out of Houston. He asks, banks and hedge funds, one more than the other? I guess he's inquiring about your sourcing. Are you buying from banks and hedge funds, or which source are you kind of leaning towards more so?
Yeah, it's been hedge funds to date, but my focus is really going to be getting to banks. Like I said, it's one of those things I just haven't had enough time to do. I've done a few things, but and it's interesting too when you start reaching out to different asset managers, the interesting things you find. I mean, I was getting some stuff, but it was I got a really interesting phone call one time from a retired banker who had sold the bank in the early 90s, and he was doing commercial stuff that often come with a second residential. So, but second residential seconds in South Florida weren't my thing, and also got some like tax liens on vacant lots, and it's amazing how many other deals are out there, and I haven't tried to chase those squirrels, but I just need to be able to do more of that, so I start to get tapes and things that kind of fit my model and my buy box.
Eric also comes back as Dan. Great job on your consistent marketing. You've been doing a great job of your consistent email. So you've been doing a weekly email for how long now?
Since February, because back when I did, I was sending it out like every couple of weeks initially, and then I think it was when I did the fast track back in February, you said you really need to be sending those out weekly. So since then, I've been real consistent about getting them out every Sunday.
And how big is your email list that you're sending out to?
It's a little over 1,000.
Okay. And what kind of open rates are you getting?
I think I'd have to go back and look. I think it's like in the 25 to 30% range overall.
That's phenomenal with that, because most of the time it's usually 20%. But you're growing your list too as you're going to events and networking too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm even beginning to get some organic signups through my website. As I've kind of built out my website, I added a little, widget there where people can sign up. That's another thing I'm going to go back and spruce up. We're going to offer, an ebook for people to sign up and things like that. So I should be able to grow that quite a bit more than where it is now. But I think the open rate is good because it is a very targeted list. They're all folks who are interested in note investing or, came in through my website. So.
What's the website name? And we can throw it up here for everybody. We'll put it in the notes.
Oh, yeah. FusionNotes.com.
Let me share that with everybody. FusionNotes.com there for you. Now, you being up in the Denver market, have you had a lot? I mean, obviously, some people have been interested because you're part of a note group. How big is that special interest group of note investors there?
They get so that's the group that Beth Hale runs. It's called like the Denver Note Mastermind group. But there's usually about 10, 12 people at those. So she puts those on once a month. It's like every third Thursday of the month, and those have been really good. I presented at one a couple months ago, and I'm actually going to present at the August one again. So that's been a really good group.
Good stuff. What questions do you guys have for Mr. Dan out there? Now's the time for you to type those in. We'll make sure and get those answered for you. So you're marketing out to a list, about 1,000, which is not the biggest of lists, but you're having success with it, raising capital in your warm market, right?
Yep.
The people that you've raised from outside that weren't friends and family, they've been getting your emails for a while, or they met at local events or other events, or how has those relationships kind of blossomed?
Yeah, so it's kind of been a combination of things. Like a lot of people have been following the email list for quite a while. A lot of them were people that I had met, face to face. So one of them through the Mastermind group. Another one through the Denver Mastermind. It was actually a combination where I had met him, I think, on Bigger Pockets initially. So I think a lot of them, there have been kind of multiple
touches
points. Yeah. And then this most recent one, basically through the email list, and some of the other online activities. So kind of a combination of things. But that's another thing. I'm going to be, branching that out, where I'm going to be doing a more kind of a new campaign towards people with IRAs, that aren't necessarily note investors. So I'm working on putting that whole battle plan together.
You'll be using some of the tools I gave you at the fast track training, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's something I want to talk to you about more when we get to the Mastermind in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I've got a really nice list of folks in the Colorado area. So
cool. It's hard to believe we're roughly about 3 weeks out from the Mastermind. I know, right?
Yeah, it's very, very, very close. Yeah, it seems like we just last one in April.
Yeah, and you're excited. It's also nice that the Quest Expo is going to be there too, to network with a lot of people, huh?
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to be doing that as well. So that'll be definitely a very busy 4 days. The other advantage of leaving my day job is I was supposed to go to a conference in Las Vegas immediately after that. So that kind of shortens the trip a little bit, makes life a little bit easier on me. So
we just got back from Vegas. You're not missing anything. 114.
No, I've done enough trade shows and conferences at Vegas that it's overrated. The first time I did it, I was all excited, but yeah, I've done enough of those to be over it. So I'm not missing that.
Eric asked the question. He goes, Dan, what is your biggest weakness as a note investor?
Biggest weakness? I think to date, it's really been just the time to do some of the targeted marketing and build out some of the materials, the ebook, and put together more case studies. I've got kind of a whole laundry list of things I need to put together. A lot of the funding I've gotten, like I said, to date has been through, a lot of face-to-face interactions at different meetups and events and some other online things. But I've really only been able to, scratch the surface on, the number of folks that have the potential to reach and message to. So
now you've got some time to schedule that in your wall calendar behind you there, huh?
yeah. That's actually one of my wall calendars. I've actually got two because I couldn't fit everything on there.
Yeah. Okay. Dinesh asked a question. He goes, Dan, hang on a second. Yeah, what made you pivot to notes to leave your job? I don't know if Dinesh came on late, but why don't you go ahead and restate that again, Dan?
Yeah, so I think what he's asking is, why did I end up, moving from product management to notes? And for me, I've always been interested in investing. Like I think I mentioned earlier, I, got into stocks and options back when I was 19, had always done that. And for me, about, a year and a half ago, I started to get really concerned about how much of my net worth that I had wrapped up in stocks between, either throughout my 401k and other investments, because I've seen, I lived through the .com boom and bust, and then, the big financial crisis. And I'm very well aware that you can lose, 30% relatively quickly. Doesn't take that much. And, with stocks, especially, some of just the index funds and things that I'm in, you don't really have a lot of control. You're sort of along for the ride. So I decided that I needed to diversify, and I wanted to get into real estate. So I originally looked at doing just traditional buy and hold rentals. I've had a lot of friends who've done that. So I I looked into that, did some research there, but with the the way we have this very hot market here in the Denver area right now, and basically the math on those and the cap rates didn't make any sense. So I kept looking for other kinds of real estate investments, and that's where I came across notes, and that was really interesting to me because my dad and my grandfather were actually in the loan business way back when. I never worked in it, but as a kid, I kind of grew up around it. And when I was in business school, I took a course in fixed income, which is basically bond analysis, which I really liked a lot. And so notes really resonated with me. And the other thing was it's a niche area, right? It's not like fix and flips where everybody and their mom is trying to do it. There's a big supply of notes out there and a relatively small number of note investors chasing those opportunities. So, everything kind of lined up for me.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with a lot of those points. All you got to look at is what happened last week if you're interested in stocks. Something happened overnight for you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Cedric asked a question here. He goes, as another IT or engineer, other than digital marketing, what other takeaways from your technical industry helped you in growing your business?
For me, the big thing is just systems and processes. I'm as a mechanical engineer in the aerospace industry, I'm definitely very analytical, but I think, over the course of being a product manager, I learned a lot more about strategy and kind of where to apply your efforts. So not just trying to do everything, but, pick and choose. I mean, a lot of what I did was product strategy in the IT industry, and you run into this issue where there are a million different markets and segments, you can go at, but, you've only got, limited resources, especially at the company I just left, where we were venture backed. So I think it's the ability to execute, the ability to come up with the right process, but then also the ability to kind of pick and choose where you want to go and not try to boil the ocean and do everything all at once. You can definitely kind of tie yourself in knots and expend a lot of effort and not get anywhere if you do too much of that.
Yeah, Dennis says, thanks, fantastic insight on that. And Cedric is also. Dickie Baldwin joining us here from Houston, Texas. He asked the question, he goes, Dan, prior to purchasing, what is your due diligence process for you?
So I do a couple of different things. So I'm a big checklist guy. So I've got a checklist that includes all the steps and a number of filters, and I'm probably changing that on like a weekly basis. But what I do is within the tape, I actually take that checklist, I copy it into another sheet so I can kind of go down and tick off the boxes. Because the other thing I found early on was when you get, multiple tapes or you have multiple deals where like you're closing on one deal and, bidding on another, it's really easy to get things messed up. So I've got kind of a step-by-step process that keeps me from forgetting any of the steps or getting mixed up between those. But I have it divided into a set of initial filters where I'll filter for things like key states, value of the home, some of the balances. I'll strip out some of the lower balances. I'll strip out some of the lower P&I amounts because the servicing fees will eat up on those. So I can get through those initial filters pretty quick and boil it down to maybe the handful that I'm really going to be interested in. And then the next phase of the due diligence is really a lot of the phone calls. So checking on taxes and checking on utilities and calling the city to see if there are any liens or anything like that. And then I've also got a whole, post-closing process, that I've been working on to make sure you get, forced place insurance and get other things turned on and set up. So, but yeah, it's a pretty big process, but I can get through it pretty quickly.
Did the checklist that we helped you kind of helped you get started for those?
Yeah, I use that as a basis, and I've had some things that I took out, and some things that I added, and like I said, I'm always adjusting my filters, as my model changes over time. It's definitely not static.
Right. Well, that's going to happen across the board as you get more comfortable in specific states or markets, or you have vendors that do a good job for you. That you cut costs here, or if you find some great things that help you out with you got a realtor that saves you $100 in BPO costs right off the bat and things like that too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What other questions you guys have for Dan? Dan the Man Deppen. Now, you got kids, Dan?
Yeah, so I've got two daughters. So they just turned 10 and 12. So they're a lot of fun. So we're kind of they're fun now. We're coming up on the teen years, which is scaring me a little bit. You can see glimpses of what's coming, but yeah, they're a blast. So we've been having a lot of fun this summer.
Well, you've got a little bit more freedom now to enjoy some more of those teen years and be Mr. Dad a little bit more, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm doing this August, we're going to go down to Florida, where I grew up and where my parents still live, so they can go hang out with the grandparents for a little bit before school starts back up here relatively shortly. So yeah, it's nice to have the freedom just to be able to take off and do that, because I can still work on notes and do the things I need to do while I'm down there.
Donovan asks, are you buying CFDs?
Yeah, they've been primarily CFDs to date, but like I mentioned, as I get more time to be calling banks and other things, I expect to be doing more of the regular mortgages as time goes on.
Well, we'll have some good stuff to share with you here in a couple of weeks. I think you're going to enjoy as well.
Oh, nice.
Because we've got one of the great things is obviously the lists that we give everybody at the Mastermind. The fast track trains, the asset manager list. I'm gonna go. If you're needing help with that, we'll spend some time on that, going through who to call, when to call, and kind of follow up stuff for you too on that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Which will be helpful there. So hopefully, Donovan, we'll see your butt up at the Mastermind as well there too for you. So you've got 13 shooting for 30 by the end of the year, which I think is very feasible for you. Very, very feasible for you. And then I think, honestly, if I can recommend something to you, let's look to double, triple that number for next year. When I look back at when like Wayne Snell was going full time, or then when Jay Tenenbaum and a few others were at a Mastermind in San Diego a few years back, you've been through this where we love to throw the SWOT analysis up on the walls, going through that and challenge kind of their goals for stuff. And I said, listen, guys, you guys are full time. Why don't you knock out 100? Push yourself towards 100, because if you miss and get 60, great, you're still doing well. But if you only shoot for 50 and you miss 25, you kind of underperform. So I'm challenging you, to the triple digits next year. All right,
and that's definitely doable. I mean, one of the other things I like about notes, so versus the engineering projects I've done in the past, right, where like you used to build satellites and stuff, right, and you build one and then takes a few years and you're starting from scratch. What I love about notes, it's very much a rinse and repeat business. I mean, once you have sources of notes, and once you have funding partners, and once you have processes for working them out, there's nothing that really stops you from scaling. And that's why I said, as I've gone along, I'm kind of thinking in terms of larger scale. So yeah, there's really nothing getting in my way of doing that. So
right. Because one of the ways to do that, obviously, is more sources and more capital for you. So you've done the right things, marketing on a consistent basis with your email list. Just got to grow that email list. I'll when we get off here, I'll give you some tips on a couple of things I would recommend highly to do that have been helpful for us. But you're constantly tweaking your process. You're constantly learning. You're constantly networking. Throughout this, I want everybody to realize Dan's doing the things that you have to do. The weekly emails, and almost monthly, if not more so, asset manager emails, the going out to the local RIA clubs and networking, and
I'm really having time to do that, because that's been a little bit limited. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be hammering those.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Dan, any final words of support to those out there that are struggling or looking to kind of get their feet wet, that are sitting on the sidelines?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it's just understand that in notes, none of this is rocket science, right? I mean, I say that as a former rocket scientist. All of this stuff can be figured out. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of details. I think that's what stops a lot of people from going further with it. That's why there's a smaller number. But it's definitely a very juicy niche. There's lots of opportunity, and there are really no barriers to entry. There's nothing really stopping you from going in there and doing it. So it's just a matter of putting in the work and being consistent over time and not getting discouraged.
The little note buyer that could. I think I can. I know I can.
Yeah.
Excuse me here. Dan, I just want you to know that we are so excited for you. We're very proud of you. We're here to help support you, obviously. I know that a lot of people here that made some comments, some mastermind members are proud of you too. Just keep up the good work. And as always, if you're going to run it, you're going to have a great time. I will tell you this, my thing, you run into any hiccups or you run into where you're like, damn, what I need to be doing something, feel free to pick up the phone. We're always glad to jump on the phone with you and give you any support we can for you too. All right.
No, I definitely will. And thank you so much, Scott. I mean, really would not have been able to reach this point without your help and, and the help of the rest of the mastermind folks and just the general community. It's really just been essential. And it's so nice where you've got, a network of people that if you run into a question or you need some help on something, there's always somebody there that, is going to be able to help out. So it's definitely not a go it alone type business. That would be probably impossible to do.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the network. That's the beauty of the mastermind. It's the beauty of the WCN crew. It's just we're blessed to have good people and be surrounded by really good people who are really believe in the phrase co-opetition, as our buddy Joel Markovitz created. Yep. We're all out for our own business, but we're all willing to help pull each other and cooperate, working together. And that's obviously by some of the people commenting on here today as well too for you. So
yeah, absolutely.
Cool, guys. Well, hey, Dan, you have a great rest of your first day of independence.
Yeah,
you better get an email out to your asset managers today. It is August 1st. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'll do that. But I already have a couple phone calls scheduled with, potential funding partners and things for later today. So yeah, definitely be staying busy.
That's good, man. We'll give our best to Jen, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. All right, Chief?
All right. Sounds great. Thanks.
Thanks very much. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Closure Show. Once again, you can reach out to fusionnotes.com. Once again, that's fusionnotes.com is Dan's website to find a little bit more about what he's doing. We're actually doing a little special feature for Dan. We had Shannon, our marketing rock star here in the office, reach out, ask him some questions. So we'll be sending a nice kind of a blog and a press release here talking about Dan, and really looking forward to that, helping to boost his butt out there as well, too, as he's out there knocking it dead, being a note investor out there. So, guys, like he said, it's not rocket scientists. It's just doing the same things and systems over and over again and rinsing and repeating. If you can do that, you'll find success in just about anything that you put your mind to. So we look forward to seeing you guys all here, hopefully in a few weeks at the Quest IRA Expo. It's hard to believe that next weekend, not this coming weekend, but next weekend is the Ohio Note Expo that Vina Jones Cox is going on. So we're looking forward to being there for a couple days. Some updates. Let's see here. I will actually be in Dallas for the Propello Dallas event, along with also being on Thursday the 9th in Columbus, Ohio at the Columbus, Ohio Note Special Interest Group. So if you're a part of those groups, we look forward to seeing you out there. Otherwise, go out and knock it dead, and we'll see you all at the top, everybody. Bye.